it's Romania Black, and we are on Mob Psycho Season 3, Episode 6. Oh man. I actually recorded Episode 5 and had to take a little bit of a break because I had to go on a trip for work. And so I've been away from Mob Psycho for quite a bit, actually, for like over a week. And I'm not happy about that because when we left off, Mob had figured out that Dimple was the divine tree version of Mob and was basically, it seems, trying to talk him out of brainwashing everybody so that he didn't have to exercise him. So we've talked in previous seasons about Mogami talking to Mob about how sometimes you can't reason with people and that you just have to fight back to defend the people you care about. And it seems like Mob is getting pushed to that point. But what's going to go down? What's going to happen? I don't know. It's kind of crazy and all over the place. I do want to say one thing, though, in that I was talking with everybody on Discord, and obviously I'm going to watch till the end of this season. I eventually would love to read the manga in my own time, and if I get a chance later on to do a video about it, that'd be great. But I have been told that there is also a spin-off manga. It's one volume that's about Reagan. I don't want to know anything about it. However, since it is a one-volume thing, once I'm done with Season 3, I am going to react to that volume of Reagan manga. So I don't want to know anything about it. Don't tell me. But I do want to react to it once we're done with Season 3. Because I'm like, it's, you know, I don't want to react necessarily to the manga because a lot of it's going to be stuff we've seen in the anime. However, the Reagan thing is its own deal. So that would be fun to react to. So once Season 3 is over, before we move on to another show, we'll just take a look at that manga volume when we get there. But this is technically the halfway point. And I'm assuming Mob has reached 100%. Maybe we're going to get a resolution to this arc with Dimple. Maybe something's going to happen. Now, where we go from there, who knows? But I do want to talk real quick about a couple things, and then obviously with the Reagan Thirst update. So, K.A. was noting way back with some previous episodes that Mizato's VA was actually replaced. The voice actor that plays Annie from Attack on Titan and Yosano that from Bungo Stray Dogs is actually the voice actress playing Misato right now. Apparently the voice actress that played Misato in seasons 1 and 2 retired from voice acting, and so this voice actress picked it up. Does a really great job because I didn't notice. I was just like, oh wait, we have a new voice actress? Didn't notice. And I don't know if that's just my ears not recognizing them doing such a good job, or the fact that Misato doesn't talk a lot in this season, and that was pretty much it. But I thought that was really cool to note, so thank you, K.A., for pointing that out. And then Lepid. Lepid actually pointed this out in the Discord, and I thought this was amazing. And this will kind of tie into our Reagan Thirst update. But back in episode 3, we were talking in the Discord about Mob being a Giga Chad, basically, with his big, giant, pompous chin and his, like, super stoic look there that he's, like, super popular. And Lepid pointed out that in Germany, in the German dub, the episode 3, season 3 titled is called The Legendary Giga Chad. Oh my god, the episode title, they actually called it that. They translated it to that. But the fact that they literally put the words Giga Chad on there, oh my god, it's absolutely amazing. So Germany, doing it right. Oh my gosh, that's fantastic. I just, der legendary Giga Chad. It's like, wonderful. So thank you, Lepid. That is absolutely amazing. I love that so much. So speaking of the Reagan Thirst update, there's been so much fan art shared in our Discord that I have enough literally for the next 2 episodes. So some of these, y'all, if you all are following me on Patreon, you'll probably think that some of these artworks are dated, but there's just so much, and I'm just cherry picking. There has been so much fan art shared that I really just had to pick my favorites out of what's on there. So there apparently was this little animal version of Mob that's been released. I'll show you a picture of it in a minute, but they did like Dimple as a little cat, which is absolutely adorable. Dimple in cat form is the cutest damn thing I've ever seen. And I want a plushie of Dimple Cat. I need a plushie of Dimple Cat. It would sit on my shelf. It would sit there by Lapras. I need it. That's just so adorable. I love it so much. I'm like, yes, please. Glad we've got it. But speaking of which, there apparently is an actual series, I'm going to scroll up and show you guys, of actually the characters of Mob Psycho in animal form. And so Ritsu and Mob are cats. They look adorable. And then Reagan and Serizawa are dogs. Serizawa is like a Newfoundland. He's either a Newfoundland or an Australian Shepherd. absolutely adorable. I'm gonna go with Newfoundland because Newfoundlands are like big, bulky teddy bears. And then Reagan's just like a mutt, or maybe he's an Akita, I don't know. And then Mob and Ritsu. Ritsu as a cat makes so much sense. And I'll have a piece of fan art to share next week with that cat Ritsu. But there was too much to go around this week, so I decided to save it till next week. But I thought that was really adorable, and I kind of want them. It's like, those plushies look absolutely adorable. The Sarazawa one especially. But of course, because that's how the fandom does, as soon as you get a piece of really fun merchandise or fan art that comes out that's official, or official art, we have all the fan art come out. And this one of all of them in their animal forms is so precious. I love the cat Mob and cat Ritsu on top of Reagan's back. Reagan's on top of Sarazawa. Sarazawa's this big Newfoundland. It's so cute. I absolutely love it. Best merch indeed, Isabel. But I also like the idea that in this fan art of cats and dogs, or whatever Reagan is, Reagan's a dog. He's just kind of like, the fact that his like little toupee of hair is on his animal form can be a little confusing, but I think he is a dog. But I just love the idea of Mob and Ritsu. They're like giving baths to Reagan and Sarazawa in dog form. Ritsu looks like he's about to pour some like acid on Reagan's back. But then you have Reagan trying to give Ritsu a bath, and Ritsu just like claws his face, which seems legit, right? And then Mob's just playing with the little toy. Freaking cute. Absolutely precious. And then of course, because Reagan and Sarazawa, we have Reagan and then Sarazawa as the dog, and he's like wagging his tail. It definitely, I love Sarazawa in the little dog form. It's so darn cute. But there was also another piece, a couple other official art pieces that were shared in the Discord. This one was actually from around Halloween, and I think I talked about it in Halloween, but I couldn't show everybody the whole thing because I wasn't showing the whole thing because Sarazawa was included. At the time, I didn't know who Sarazawa was. So now here it is in its full glory. It's Sarazawa and Reagan as demons. And then like Teru has this leprechaun thing going on. Ritsu has an eye patch. Mob has like the devil's spear, just like Reagan. It's really cute. But yeah, and then like, what is it? Dimple has like blood coming from his mouth. Absolutely ridiculous, right? But I'm glad I can see the full thing now. I can see Sarazawa in it. That's great. And then the last piece of art shared is this one where they're playing, it looks like ping pong. And I like the idea that it's Teru and Ritsu versus Sarazawa and Reagan, and Mob's like taking score. I've seen a lot of art recently of Ritsu and Teru, and I kind of like that. Like I love Teru Mob. Like that ship is really fun. But I like the fact that Ritsu and Teru kind of like as Mob's BFF and brotherly support kind of are together a lot in this third season. I like that. So super cute art. But yeah, what a Reagan Thirst update. I was very pleased with all of the different artwork for this episode. There's still a ton next week to go through, but like I said, I had so much. I'm like, I'm just going to save a bunch for next week. So we'll look at it then. But yeah. So I feel like we're going to get resolution in this episode, but as to what is going to happen to Dimple, if Mob's actually going to have to exercise him to like get him away and make the divine tree fall, if Mob, like, I don't think Mob's going to give in to being this giant dictator of the divine tree and this religious cult leader, but that's what Dimple wants for reasons. So I just don't know, but y'all, it's crazy. So I'm really excited to see what's going to happen. I hope you all are too, but we're not going to waste any more time. We're going to dive right in and just see what happens. So I hope y'all enjoy, but we are going to start Mob Psycho Season 3, Episode 6. And we are going to do that here in 3, 2, 1, and let's go. Well, I don't know how to feel about this episode, if I'm being honest, because I felt like it was too short, if I'm being honest. I felt like, I'll be honest with y'all, Mob Psycho hasn't missed. It hasn't missed, but this episode, not that it felt rushed, but it felt too short. It felt like it needed another episode, like it needed some kind of drawing out or something. It needed something else. And maybe Maybe there's more in the manga. I don't necessarily want to know. So if there is more in the manga, I do eventually want to read the manga myself. So I don't really want to know because it'd be cool to do a video about it later. But I don't know if there's just more manga content, and because they're constricted to 12 episodes, they couldn't fit it all in, so they just decided to cut. But this episode, it didn't feel long enough. It felt like the first half of it definitely felt like, okay, Mob realizing that this entire time Dimple has been the one person that's been brutally honest with him, and that he tried to talk him down from his high horse back in episode 3, and Mob just kind of dismissed him, and Mob wasn't being a good friend. And Mob realizes that now, and kind of like how that can affect people, right? Because we'll go back to that through the episode, but from the moment that he was and then the part where the divine tree has gained its own consciousness, that part all made sense. And then they were fighting and everything. But from the moment that he was up in the air surrounded by all the different Mob tree versions, and then it cut to Mob waking up and him being like, hey, I can hypnotize you, you need to go. I mean, I guess stylistically it was in some vein, it felt like Mob was only getting bits and pieces of what was happening, and we only got to see bits and pieces of what was happening, and then Mob went on his way. That part makes sense, but the idea just felt too short. It felt like once you saw Dimple like with part of his body gone, and Mob says, let's go home. From that point, it was just all too fast. And I wanted to see, it seemed like Dimple let the tree absorb him, and he like just destroyed it from within and sent it flying up into the air, into orbit to get it away, which is cool. Better than throwing it into the ocean. How pedestrian. But yeah, I wanted more. And the idea that Dimple sacrificed himself, like the moment that the tree started attacking and Dimple was like, okay, I'm gonna do this I'm not gonna let anything happen to Mob. Like that Dimple's sacrifice. But I just wanted more. I wanted there to be more of it. I wanted more with Dimple. I wanted more. I'm like, is he dead? He sent the tree into orbit. Is Dimple gone for the rest of the series? Is he gonna come back at the end? I don't want him to be gone. And the moment Mob was like, oh, I'm fine, to Ritsu went upstairs, I'm like, he's gonna cry because he's gonna realize. And the thing of it is that Mob doesn't remember. He doesn't remember Dimple's sacrifice, but he knows in his heart that Dimple's gone and that they are safe because of Dimple. And maybe that's a good thing that Mob has forgotten all of the bad things about Dimple, because Dimple kind of like came to his senses and Mob's only remembering the good things. But I just feel so hollow inside. Like I don't feel like I want to cry necessarily, but I feel so hollow, and I think I would cry or be even more emotionally impacted if we had been given longer to let everything soak in, because I'm kind of reeling in shock that Dimple's gone from the series. I was fully expecting if Dimple was going to go this episode, it was going to be because Mob would have to exorcise him and he'd have to let him go. And I was fully expecting that to happen. I was like, he's going to have to exorcise Dimple. It's coming. And that's not what happens at all. Mob actually, for a brief second, I thought Mob was going to be like, let's be gods of this divine tree together since I can trust you all the way. And I was like, oh no. But that's not what happens. But Mob realizing that Dimple has been his friend, and maybe he was having a moment of relapse, kind of like Dimple is now, and maybe he shouldn't judge Dimple so much because he's had a moment of getting carried away as well. We'll talk about that. But yeah, oh my gosh, I just feel so empty and hollow inside with this episode. And it's not an emotion that I've had with Mob. Like, Mob Psycho's made me sad and like made it feel like, oh, I'm heartbroken. But here it's just like, it literally feels like the root of something, like Dimple has been plucked and just tossed away. And I guess that's the feeling that one wants to leave us, the audience, with, is not a feeling necessarily of ultimate tragedy, but just a feeling of, oh, like this part of us is gone. And it just feels so hollow and empty. And I'm like, oh man, damn it. It's really sad. I'm like, dang it, show. What are we doing? So yeah, Mob. Now here's the thing. I do think, like, he talks about like Reagan and Ritsu both tried to play the shirt off and they weren't being totally honest with Mob. I think Tara was being honest with Mob. I think Tara genuinely thought it was good fashion, but the thing about it is Tara has terrible fashion, as people in the Discord and Patreon have informed me. He has terrible fashion, so that's fine. But I feel like Ritzy was being honest, but Dimple was the one from the start that was like, that looks terrible. And I like that Dimple says, what the F? Like, that's actually translated in this episode. He's like, no, wait, really, what the F is happening? What's going on? Dimple is such... I like that he's become this character on this journey that we've really connected to and has been this kind of like sourpuss. And now I'm like, I'm glad the official merchandise still keeps him in it. Because I was like, no, Dimple's a full-fledged member of the crew. And he did all of this to try to get Mob's attention. And that kind of connects back to Mob. You know, Dimple showed off his powers to get Mob's attention because he cares about Mob. Now, I said in the reaction, I'm like, I think Dimple loves Mob. Not romantically, not sexually, nothing like that. Not a ship. No. But I think that Dimple genuinely cares for Mob and genuinely loves him. And he was trying to get Mob's attention and he just did it in the most flamboyant way he could because that's the only way he knew how to get a hold of him. And it's just, God, it's tragic. I'm like, right? It's just, ugh. It hits you in the feels. I'm like, man. And Mob realizes that, and the idea that Mob lets off all of this energy, and it's not even energy to like as an attack or anything. It sparks like a tree of its own, but also like the central nervous system, like all the wires connect and everything in that moment. It's beautiful. And Tsubomi gets her like 10 seconds of time where she's like, oh, it's so pretty. It's like, yes, it is very pretty, but it's just the idea of trust. That Mob trusts Dimple. He knows Dimple's not really going to hurt people. He knows Dimple's going to stop and it's going to be okay. But, and he's like, are you shocked? Is this? And he like puts the barrier up and he's like, did Mob get his energy sucked dry? Now, part of it could be the divine tree that has the fake Mob did suck his energy out. But he's like, I went to all this trouble of turning into God Dimple. And I love that he says, I'm going to like poke you with my finger. He does like the lust thing from Full Metal Alchemist where he extends it all the way to like get to Mob's head. And Mob's like, no. He's like, you're not going to go do anything. He's like, because I realize now, he's like, you've been honest this whole time to me. And he's like, I can trust you, Dimple. You're not going to hurt me. No. For a brief second, I thought Mob was going to be like, let's rule the world together. And I was like, no. But that's not the case at all. He just said he realizes that Dimple's not going to hurt him. He's like, you gave me your honest opinion about this shirt. So I know I can trust you. Otherwise, why would you do that? And I like that Dimple's like, but you don't like the way I'm doing things, right? You're mad at me, right? And Mob's like, yeah. But he's like, let's talk about this. He's like, I don't like what you're doing, but I'm not going to like just lash out at you. Let's be adults here and talk about it. He says, you're not dangerous. And he talks about Master Reagan saying the same thing too. I love that Dimple, as soon as Reagan's mentioned, he's like, Reagan kind of have a similar piece of advice. And Dimple's like, oh, that's not true. I love that even in this moment of life or death situations, Dimple will refuse to admit that he and Reagan are connected in any way, shape, or form. I'm like, that is absolutely hilarious. So he's just like, no. That's so good. That's so good. But yeah, he says, don't compare me to some randos that just got carried away. And Reagan did say, sometimes you get carried away. And he's like, well, Mob, you're just being, you're being modest or whatever. And Mob's like, no, I got carried away too, and I'm sorry. He's like, you were trying to talk to me before, and I turned you away because I thought I was too good for you. And that was a mistake, and I shouldn't have done that. And maybe you wouldn't have formed a giant religious cult and tried to take over the world if I just listened. If I just listened and gave you the time of day and been an actual friend like I've been preaching, maybe you wouldn't have gone all crazy on everybody. We don't know for sure, right? He's like, and that's on me. And he's like, I'm sorry, Dimple. And he's like, you finally got what you always longed for. And that's the thing too. Mob's sitting there. He's going, you genuinely wanted to be with somebody, like, and have a friend. He's like, you could have done this all by yourself. You didn't need to come get me. You could have made this work all on your own and just got me out of the way, but that wasn't the case. You wanted to involve me. You wanted to be my friend. And he's like, I was looking at it through the worst case scenario and wasn't seeing the full picture of what was going on. And he's like, and I should have, and that's me being a bad friend. And it's just Mob is the most pure being. And it's like, damn, Mob he just kind of cuts to the core of Dimple. And he's like, the most important part was that we should be friends. And Dimple like tries to be a tsundere, and he's like, no, he's like, I got these followers and didn't have obstacles. I became a god. And then he's like, then there was this kid that didn't use his psychic powers, and I just didn't understand it. He's like, why is this kid like this? And then as he traveled with Mob these last 3 seasons, he's realized the kind of person Mob is and how great he is. And it's so sweet, right? And the idea that he's like, he never went along with my awesome ideas. He never followed me. The fact he could never fully commit annoyed me too, right? It's like Dimple was projecting all his own insecurities from his past life and from how he is now as a ghost onto Mob. And he says the only thing was his desire to make the girl he likes notice him was something that he could relate to. I felt like that was something I could relate to as well. Yeah, Dimple understood that Mob wanting Tsubomi to like him and wanting her to notice him, he's like, I know exactly what that's like. And I love the image of Dimple floating and the light shining down on him, and he's just looking at the rat. Like, Dimple just wanted someone to acknowledge him, someone to notice him, someone to notice he existed. And it makes you wonder, like, what he was like when he was alive, like what drove him to become a ghost, because he had this unfinished business. He wasn't accepted or liked in his real life. He's like, but Mob, he's like, I traveled the world and no one recognized me, pointed me out, knew I existed. But this little middle school kid, not only did he notice me even though I was a ghost, but he kept me around and he gave me the sense of belonging. And it's like, Dimple. And just it all comes crashing down. He's like, I thought I could use him, but in the end, he's like, I was the one that ended up changing. He's like, I thought I had ambitions, but I really just wanted a friend. And it's so sad. I do love that in his god form, we just see Dimple's butt cheeks like throughout this entire episode. It's actually kind of hilarious. And Mob, he's like, well, don't you want to stop me, Mob? Aren't you going to like stop what I'm doing? And I think before Mob went to 100%, before he had the full-on trust mode, I think Mob was considering getting rid of him. But then he's like, no, I want to hear you out. Everything you want to do. And at that point, I was like, okay, Mob, hear him out, but don't go along with his plans for world domination. But he actually wanted to hear him out. And that's when Dimple, that's all it took, was for Mob to say, I just want to hear you out. And Dimple's like, oh. I guess this is the part that does seem a little bit rushed to me, is that Dimple does immediately go to having all these grand ideas to being like, oh, well, the moment Mob says that he just wants to hear him out, Dimple goes, yeah, God and followers don't matter. All I wanted was a friend. And I get what the show is trying to do, and I think it's beautiful, the idea that Dimple realizes this. To me, it just comes a little too quickly. And I wanted there to be like another line or two of dialogue, another moment of two of conversation for Dimple to realize it. Like a little bit more montage, a little bit more push to get him to that point. He seems like immediately to be like, I don't need these gods and followers. It just took that little bit. He's like, I never realized until now that what I wanted was a friend. And yeah, at this point, it was like not even halfway through the episode. And I was like, whoa, we've already reached the conclusion. That didn't go the way I thought it would. Okay. Not that it felt rushed, but I wanted to have like another 3 or 4 minutes, another push. I don't know, something. It does almost seem, not that it's unearned, but it almost just seems too quick. And that's the only way I can describe it, is I wanted more between Dimple and his thoughts and everything to fully get me there. If I'm being honest, I wanted a little bit more, but what can we do? And so he says he's going to erase all the memories of the fake Psycho helmet, which is great. I'm like, okay, I'm usually not for memory erasing in series. That to me is I think memories are so sacred, and the idea of losing them even in like fictional narrative, it weirds me out. I don't like it. I don't usually like memory wipe narrative tropes because I'm just like, that's so annoying, right? And so at first I was like, well, it's good that you're erasing all the memories of the Psycho Helmet because yes, the memories of them like forming a cult probably don't need to be there. But it's just like anytime there's a memory erase narrative, I always feel like maybe for one character it's going to go too far and erase too much. And for another character it's not going to erase enough. Like Mob and Ritsu remember Dimple. They just don't remember all about him in terms of the Divine Tree. And that's... But I am glad that he was offering to like make things back to normal. And so he says he's going to return to normal, but then Mob's like, wasn't becoming God your dream? And I'm like, Mob, it's like Dimple can't catch a break. And he's like, yeah, I'm going to stay like this for like a week, you know? And we don't get to see that. And then he's just like, I'm giving that up because you kept coming at me with this is probably bad logic. And yeah, Dimple's like, you've been telling me the last 2 episodes how bad these ideas are, and now you're telling me to stay in my god form? Make up your mind, Shigeo. And then he says, yeah, I see you're right. And Dimple's like, kid. Like, he just loves this kid. And to the point where he's like, he's like, why are you so awkward? Like, just carrying him on his back. He's like, Mom has like all these father figures, right? He has Dimple, he has Reagan, Sarazawa might as well count as one. It's like, I had all these grand plans of how this episode was going to end. Like, I had the humorous ending that Sarazawa would come out of night school and be like, what's going on, guys? But we don't get that. I guess I overhyped myself on how this episode would end and it being this big grandeur thing. And in the end, it's something so simple in that Dimple just sacrifices himself to save Mom. And that's it. And it's something so like just practical right there. And that's all we need. It's like, it's minimalism, I guess is what it is. And I've been psyching myself up thinking it's going to be this big grandiose thing and have this big dramatic conclusion. And it's like a whisper almost. It's like just a will-o-wisp. And that's really good. I like it. I'm not mad about it or sad. Well, I am sad. It's really sad, but it's not at all what I expected. And it feels like such a departure from normal Mob Psycho, because normal Mob Psycho, we did have this beautiful dramatic battle with all the rainbow godly beams and everything, but it felt understated in comparison to some other battles. Like the battle between Suzuki and Mob was insanity. And this felt like it was getting to that level, and then it restrained itself and held itself back. And that's unusual for Mob Psycho. It's different. So, but, I mean, I'm not mad about it, but it just definitely did not go the way I thought it would be. And I like that Mom's like, well, you can come back to my place. And then at first he's like, Dimple, how long are you going to stay in this body? And Dimple's like, oh, about a week. And then he's like, maybe you should stay somewhere else. And he's like, well, you really don't hold back, do you, kid? And then it seemed like they said this was like this broccoli. It's such a fine broccoli. Like they talked about making a tourist trap. And at first I was like, oh, well, okay, you could erase the memories of the Psycho Helmet, keep the broccoli here, and it'd be like a tourist attraction. But Dimple makes the comment, he's like, yeah, even if we made it a tourist attraction, humanity naturally seems to idolize things that are bigger and beyond their understanding. So he's like, we would probably end up in the same cult-like situation as before, except Dimple wouldn't be in control. And he's not in control anymore with this, apparently, right? That's kind of the thing. So they decide that they have to get rid of it. And it's probably going to be on people's minds for a while. And then, yeah, Mob passes out. And at this point, we're at the halfway point of the episode. And I was like, man, this resolution really just happened and there's nothing to worry about. And then we have the very uber creepy tree mob that's just absolutely insane. I'm like, nope. That's a big old pile of nope, not having it. And then Dimple figures out that the tree's gained its own control and he has to fight it. And there's not much to talk about other than the fact that he just fights these different versions of the tree and it's absolutely terrifying, right? It's absolutely terrifying. No, sir. But him fighting the tree, and it just keeps getting bigger and bigger, and they just want Mob as like sustenance. And for Dimple to be like, over my ghostly dead body, you're gonna have Mob. And him fighting it, I do want to make note, Bones does create this, and Bones is the same studio that does My Hero Academia, and there's an animator, and I'm sure in the comments people will say their name, but there's an animator for My Hero Academia that has a very distinct animation style, and when Dimple is fighting the little tree mobs, that animation style, it is exactly the same. And so I think the same art director, the same animation director worked on those scenes. I don't like it. I don't like those scenes in My Hero Academia, and I don't really care for them here. They're fine, but they're so, and they're very stylistic, but they almost feel like, not sloppy, but they feel unfinished, I guess is what it is. It feels unfinished, and it feels like, it just like shows people like moving like smoothly, but without that motion or muscle movement. It just feels weird. It's a weird artistic decision, and I know some people really like it. I'm okay with it, but it's not my favorite. But yeah, and Dimple, the rainbow godly beams, oh my god, and just everything. And the moment it goes back to Dimple, like waking Mob up, and we don't see everything. It's such a great fake out, because you think, you're like Dimple was about to like die, what's happening? And then you see like all of Dimple's like basically chipped away, and like chunks of him are missing. But when Mob sees him, he hypnotizes him to where Mob just sees the ghost Dimple, that everything's okay. And that's so symbolic, because it's the idea that Dimple has presented himself as this one vision the entire time. But now we see what's beneath the vision. We see the real Dimple underneath, or at least what we think is the real version. And it's so, so sad. And then he's just sacrificing himself for Mob. Ugh. It's a beautiful moment, but man, it's just, and he tells Mob, he's like, you have to stand no matter what. He's like, and it's such like a final moment, right? Because Dimple, he does give him like the little head pat, and he's like, you're a man now, you're going to be big. And it just feels like a final moment, right? But you don't think, you're like, no, it can't be it. He can't be gone. Like, no, this isn't his first and final orders to Mob. No way. He's going to come back next episode, and it's going to be fine. But it's not. And I'm in denial. You're like, it's going to be fine. Dimple's going to be there right as rain, and it'll be okay. But no, he's not. And it's really, really tragic. But the whole scene against the tree, it reminds me of, if you've ever watched Scott Pilgrim versus the World, they build up this idea of nega Scott, like the negative Scott, and they build him up the entire movie. And at the end, they're like, oh no, it's Scott versus Nega Scott. And then it ends up being like a fake out, and it lasts for 2 seconds, and then everything's fine. And you're like, oh, okay, it was like a big red herring. And that kind of seems like how this fight was. It was this big red herring. You think it's going to be this big, epic, giant battle, and then it just is over. And Dimple's like, no, I'm going to sacrifice myself to save Mob. Because I love him. It's not sunk in completely yet. But him telling, he's like, there's somewhere I need to stop by. I was like, it feels like Old Yeller. It feels like Old Yeller's getting taken out back. He's going to get shot. And I'm like, no, Mob, don't. And then just him leaving Dimple. And okay, you can see now, oh my God, the giant. Oh, I didn't see it in the episode. But now, oh my God, that's the creepiest thing. That giant Mob head is right there staring at them. The eyes and the face. Oh, that's so creepy. No. Oh. And like, yeah, it's there, the giant Mob face. And then Dimple waves him away. Oh. And doesn't turn back. And Dimple lets himself be taken by the tree. And then it blows it up from within. And takes off with it, and Mob's like, okay, let's all go home. And then that part too, we didn't see Reagan go home. We didn't see Sarazawa, anything with that. We get the impression that everybody went home and they just forgot about the psycho helmet. But they all remember the divine tree, and then it's leaving. And Ritsu's like, we must have been in this big group hypnosis thing, I guess. But we all got out somehow. I mean, this is usually Dimple's area of expertise. Ha ha ha. And Mob's like, yeah, I gotta go. And he had to go because he was going to cry because he knew Dimple was gone. It just felt like it ended too soon. I was expecting Dimple to get exercised in this episode. I was fully preparing myself like, okay, Dimple's he's either gonna see the errors of his ways and everything's gonna be fine, or he's gonna get exercised by Mob and it's gonna be this big dramatic sad thing that's like horrifically overblown with drama. And instead it's this quiet moment of Dimple just telling Mob. And now it's hitting. Now it's hitting. Now it's like, oh, he just basically like told Mob he loved him and like he was gonna be a big man someday, and then sent him on its way. Now it's hitting me, damn it! Now it hits. It's taking a while to sink in. I want Dimple to be gone. Dimple's like one of the funniest parts of this show. I don't want him to be gone. I feel like this season has been about Mob growing up and becoming his own person and things that you have to do along the way as growing up. And Dimple's been like that mentor figure in the weirdest of ways. Like a dark mentor. I mean, Reagan's been, oddly enough, the light mentor, and Dimple's been the dark mentor, or vice versa, however you want to look at it. But Dimple, it was like time to let him go. Like, he's like, it's time for Mob to move on. He doesn't need me anymore. I saved Mob back in season 2, and now it's Mob's turn to save me. And I don't need him anymore. I feel like that's what this season is about. It's about Mob growing up and moving forward, and Dimple, who is a ghost that constantly was trying to settle his unfinished business. Now Dimple can move on. Dimple can move on and Mob can move on. And it's like their unfinished business, they can just move on past it. And it's just, oh my God. It's really sad. It's really sad. Dang it. What can we do, y'all? I'm really, really sad. I'm so sad about it, and I don't know what else to say, but this episode was really heartbreaking, and it's just now hitting me, and it probably won't sink in. It's gonna sink in like episode 11. It's gonna sink in like right before the ending that Dimple's not there, and he's probably not coming back. He just took off with the broccoli tree, and then Mob, like, what got me at the very end was Mob being like, oh, everything's all right, and then he goes upstairs and like cries and tells Dimple thank you for everything that he's done. And that's it. And that's the episode. I'm like, it just ends like on a whimper. And I'm like, ah. I feel like my heart has been like ripped out of my soul, out of my body, and just stomped away. It's still sinking in, but y'all, man, we're at the halfway point of the season. Oh, it's been a roller coaster, and I have a feeling we're not even done yet. So I'm curious to know your thoughts down below. Please no spoilers, but I'm curious to know what you guys thought of this episode. If you liked it, if you thought it was rushed, if you thought it was the perfect amount of time, if you are still in denial that Dimple's gone, if it's hit you, if you're still reeling from it. I'm so curious to know, because it's not sink in for me, and it will probably take till next week to sink in. So there we go. But I hope you all have a wonderful week. Please stay safe, take care, and yeah, we just got to move forward. So I'll be back next week with episode 7 of Mob Psycho 100. Bye.